Welcome to the all-new Marketing Masterminds. I'm Bill DeCourcy.
And I'm Joe Barker. And if you've been looking for a place where marketing strategy actually meets real-world execution, you found it. We're diving deep into something that's reshaping how every marketer in our space thinks about creating content. The AI revolution in marketing copy.
And that's why we're joined today by Jason Mack, our Vice President of Applied AI, who leads our AI strategy and data science initiatives across our health and wealth businesses. Jason's job, and it's a big one, is to turn AI from a buzzword into practical tools that make our marketing smarter, our decisions faster, and our operations more effective, all while ensuring that we do it responsibly and strategically.
Jason, welcome to the Marketing Masterminds.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Here's what I'm wrestling with. When everyone can create content instantly, the real challenge isn't production anymore. It's setting yourself apart from everybody else. The ability to create content has been democratized, but has the bar for what makes content effective just gotten higher for everyone?
Yeah, I think the sea of sameness is already here. If everyone's using the same tool, everyone's just taking ChatGPT and putting in simple prompts like write me a Medicare enrollment email, the tone, the structure is all going to converge on kind of the same thing. And you can do this yourself, right? Open up ChatGPT, open up Gemini, open up Claude, put that same simple prompt in, and you're going to find results look similar tone, similar safe structure. So the opportunity is for marketers who understand their audience much deeply to use AI differently. They'll feed it real call center transcripts. They'll add real advisor questions, real objection patterns, and they'll get outputs that reflect how their people actually talk and what their clients actually worry about. So the marketers, absolutely, the bar has been raised, and they're moving more towards an editor-in-chief. So the production speed is table stakes now, right? Everyone can use these tools and get a lot faster. The differentiation comes down to curation and judgment, knowing what to keep and what to kill. Think of it like photography. Everyone got a smartphone, but good photography still exists. National Geographic still exists. So the phone didn't replace the eye or kill the photographer. It actually raised expectations of what a great image should look like. And the same thing is happening with marketing content. The marketers who win are the ones who are going to use AI to produce 10 different drafts and have the taste to pick out what's the right one, and then make that better, not the ones who are just publishing whatever the first draft that comes out of the tool is.
So you just mentioned this. Everyone has access to the same tool. So we're talking Copilot, Claude, Writer. We're all using the same things. So what's actually going to set apart a marketer who wins from those who don't?
Yeah, it's really about the inputs and not the outputs. So the tools are the same, but what you feed into them is completely different. And it's your proprietary data, your enrollment trends, advisor feedback, your claims experience, that's the moat. So if you take two different wealth advisors and both are using that same tool, say Claude, to draft a market commentary after a volatile week, if one just says, write me a market update, they're going to get a pretty mediocre result that looks like the inbox that everyone's getting. But the other that pastes in their firm's house view, the top 3 client concerns from that week, and their firm's compliance guardrails, night and day difference in what's going to come back. So strategy still needs to live between the marketer's ears, and AI is just an amplifier. It can amplify either good or bad content.
Well, I'd say that's good news for all of us.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So this leads me to something that I think keeps a lot of marketers up at night, and that's brand voice.
So we've spent a lot of years building that distinct voice for organizations. So whether we're talking about AmeriLife's trusted advisor tone or our distribution partners and their unique personalities, does AI introduce a new risk to that?
It does introduce a risk if you haven't defined what your brand voice is. I've been in a lot of organizations and they have brand guidance, and what that often looks like is documents in terms of colors and logos and when to use which fonts. And very few have actually documented their voice in a way that an AI or even say a new employee could understand.
Absolutely. And I have heard something that's emerging right now is this idea of having a voice DNA, taking some of your own writing samples from before when AI was a thing and asking the tool to actually use those things. Is that something that we're pursuing here at AmeriLife, that idea of taking that distinct voice that was written pre-AI and making sure that going forward, that's something that's reflected in the marketing?
It is, and this is something I'd recommend any marketer do, which is build an AI voice brief, and it can be simple, right? You're just creating a document, maybe 5 to 6 examples saying this is us and this is not us. And then you can feed that document into what's called the context of that AI tool every time you work with it, whether you're drafting emails or different campaign strategies. Because AI is really good at the 0 to 80%, that first draft, getting the structure right, the research synthesis. It's that getting from 80% up to 100%, which is where the emotional nuance, cultural sensitivity, the does it sound like us gut check comes in, and that's where our human marketers earn their keep.
So that leads me to a question that I really want to know the answer to, which is where in the content creation process should the human element remain absolutely non-negotiable?
I think it's on final approval, anything client facing. You always want that final human approval there. I think about empathy-driven content, condolence messaging, claims support, health crisis communications. These are going to require human judgment every time. Imagine an AI drafting a communication about a plan to change the network that affects the way thousands of seniors access their doctors. AI can get the facts right, but the emotional framing, the difference between your provider may no longer be a network versus here's how we're helping you find the right care, that's a human call with real consequences.
You're in a very unique situation where you work on both the health and the wealth side of the house. These are two very different worlds.
Yeah, I mean, on the health side, we're dealing with CMS on regulations there, annual enrollment periods, Medicare marketing rules. On the wealth side, it's FINRA compliance. There's market volatility that people are constantly keeping in mind, retirement planning cycles, things like that.
So do you think that AI is going to reshape these worlds as two different channels, or do you think that same playbook can apply to both worlds?
I think at the highest level, the playbook looks the same. The difference is always as you get down to the details, right? Those different regulatory environments create differences in the playbooks and the strategies. So, to look at, say, the health side, CMS and Medicare, there with marketing, you have prescriptive rules about what you can and can't say, specific enrollment windows, AEP period, that create this intense seasonal demand, and then strict guidelines about beneficiary communications. So AI's biggest value there is going to be that speed to compliance, generating first drafts when time matters during that AEP crunch time. And on the wealth side, with FINRA and SEC, you have more principles-based regulation. Everything needs to be fair and balanced, and AI's value there is consistency at scale, making sure that every advisor's client newsletter meets the same compliance standard without bottlenecking through a single compliance reviewer. I'd say the biggest early advantage is going to go to marketers who use AI for personalization, not just production. And in that sense, both health and wealth, both those channels have the same unlock, moving from this, one message out to many to taking many messages to one individual.
So let's say you're one of those people who's using AI very well right now. What's the next step, the next competitive advantage for them?
One of the ones I see is, and this should be easy and approachable for a lot of marketers with the current state of the tools, is in content repurposing. So you can take a long form piece, whether that's a webinar transcript you did, a compliance approved guide, and you use AI to spin it into blog posts, into social snippets, into an email series, or advisor talking points. And that's immediate ROI for marketers today. So, one 30-minute Medicare 101 webinar can become a 6-part email nurture series, and 12 social posts, and an FAQ page, and a one-pager for your agents, all in a fraction of the time it used to take.
It's pretty incredible how quick it is. All right, I'm going to shift gears a little bit and bring up the elephant in the room, compliance.
Yeah. I think if you're familiar with the space, you know that everything we do gets touched by our internal compliance teams. It has to be reviewed by CMS. FINRA is a consideration there. The scrutiny there is very intense.
Yeah, when AI becomes a part of that workflow and that content creation workflow, it raises questions that we just have never really had to face before.
That's a good point, yeah. So what compliance or regulatory issues around AR marketing should leaders in our space be thinking about right now, Jason?
I think the compliance question is not can we use AI, but it's whether how can we prove that we used it. I mean, we know regulators are watching. They may not have issued final rules yet on AI-generated content, but when they do, the kind of questions they're going to ask are, what was your process? Who reviewed it? Can you show that audit trail, and who signed off on these materials? I mean, CMS today already requires that Medicare marketing materials be filed and approved. If AI generated the first draft, the review process actually doesn't change. Your documentation should reflect that AI was involved, but think of it just like citing sources on a research paper. You want to be ahead of it, not scrambling. And responsible insight means treating AI like a talented but unsupervised intern. AI will confidently produce content that sounds perfect, but it could contain subtle errors, just the nature of the tools. Maybe it's a slightly wrong plan benefit or an outdated performance figure or a missing compliance disclaimer. AI can generate a beautifully written wealth management piece that cites historical market return figure that was off by a full percentage point, and it read perfectly. And a junior marketer might have even published it without blinking. That's the kind of error in a FINRA-regulated communication that could create a real regulatory issue. In practice, oversight means AI drafts, humans verify facts. Compliance reviews with the same rigor they always have. The workflow gets faster, but the checkpoints don't get removed. I think something that's really important is the training of your people. Like that importance doesn't go away. The biggest compliance risk is with AI is not the technology, but it's the marketers using it without understanding the rules that need to apply to their channel.
So in your opinion, what does responsible oversight actually look like when AI becomes a part of that workflow? So not just in theory, but in real practice, breaking it down, what does that actually look like?
I think it's similar to what you have today, but it's about fitting AI into that workflow. It's still documenting your processes, having the audit trail of approvals, and investing in the training of your people so they know what to expect and what to do with it.
Jason, you've given us a lot of information as we wrap up here. I want to switch from the bigger picture to tactical items that people can really start to use today.
So first, I'd say AI has fundamentally changed the game, and waiting is no longer a valid strategy. The tools are here, they're incredibly powerful, and your competitors are using them. This isn't a someday conversation anymore. If you haven't started experimenting with AI in your content workflow, you're already falling behind. Not because the technology is magic, but because the marketers who use it are learning faster. They're iterating faster. They're reaching their audience with more relevant content than you are. The cost of waiting isn't just missed efficiency, it's missed learning. Every month you delay, someone else is building that muscle memory that's going to separate the marketing leaders from the followers in the space. Second takeaway is that AI is an accelerator, not an autopilot. Your expertise is still what makes it valuable. Here's what I don't want people to hear from this conversation, that AI is going to replace your marketing team. It's not. What it will do is make the difference between a great marketer and an average one even more visible. The technology can produce content at incredible speed, but speed without strategy is just noise. Your knowledge of your audience, your understanding of what moves a 67-year-old woman in Tampa to pick up the phone, your feel for what that pre-retiree in Chicago needs to hear about their 401k, that expertise is what turns AI output into marketing that actually works. You use AI to handle the heavy lifting so that your team can focus on the thinking that a machine can't do. And then third, I'd say start. Start now. Start small. Build the governance to scale with confidence. So don't try to boil the ocean. Pick one workflow. Maybe it's just your email campaigns, or maybe it's your social content calendar, or repurposing some of that long form content like we talked about earlier. Just start using AI there and learn what works. Build a simple governance framework. What tools are approved? What's the review process? Who signs off? Document that stuff. Write it down. Because here's what's coming, regulation, and it will catch up. And your executive leadership will ask for your AI strategy, and the organizations that have a thoughtful, responsible approach in that place with the ones that scale fastest. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be in the game.
Jason, last question. First of all, I heard one of the reasons you got this role is because you have a crystal ball. So I'm going to ask you to take that crystal ball out right now and tell us, where is this all going?
I think where I'm most excited about where things are headed is the evolution of agentic AI workflows. The past couple years have been a sort of call and return, right? Type a response to the AI, get something back, asynchronous kind of work. But with agentic AI workflows, we're moving beyond that generate me a draft, here's an output, towards an AI that can manage entire content pipelines. So imagine researching, drafting, routing for review, optimizing your campaigns based on performance data, and suggesting what to create next. These are going to be a team of agents, and marketing teams will manage these AI agents the way they manage junior team members today. So we'll be able to get to that hyper-personalization at an individual level.
AI, it's a powerful tool, but it's still just a tool. And the strategy behind it is what is going to separate the leaders from the followers.
Absolutely. Jason, thank you so much for joining us today and for all the work that you're doing to help AmeriLife and our distribution partners navigate this transformation thoughtfully.
And for those of you who tuned in, thank you very much for doing so. We will see you next month on Marketing Masterminds.